Hello everyone, and just welcome to this little video on how to set up a notebook instance on Amazon SageMaker. And this is a part of the Deep Reinforcement Learning Portfolio Optimization project. So to start in, I assume that you've already got your AWS account created, and if so, we just click the sign into the console. As you can see, I have the multi-factor authentication enabled, which I highly recommend. You get a little app that goes onto your phone, and it goes through a pseudo-random set of numbers that it matches up, so it's a secondary authentication method. And once we're in here now, you can, if you've been here before, you'll see recently visited sites, and Amazon SageMaker is where we want to go. However, if you haven't got that, you can either search for it, or you can come down underneath machine learning and click on the Amazon SageMaker. So while that's just opening up, one other thing I wanted to mention again is about the regions. The reason why this is kind of important is that if you go into one region, start up a notebook or some instances, then you go into another one, you won't see it. So there's a chance you may actually have something started up on one instance and not see it if you go into another. The danger there, of course, is that you have an expensive machine learning instance spun up, charging you by the hour, and you don't realize it. So a good practice, I find, is to just kind of pick your favorite and constantly go in there. That way you have a good idea. You won't have any missing. I usually pick North Virginia. It's where a lot of the new stuff comes out. However, you could pick any of the regions as long as you're kind of consistent. That's the main thing. So now that we're in here, we'll want to go down and say Notebook Instances. Just click that. If you had any instances running, you would see it along here, which we'll show you soon. Since there's none, we are going to go in and create a notebook instance. Just give it a name. It could be anything you want. And then we're going to have to come down and pick the type. The machine learning, ML, T2, and T for tiny and medium is probably a good one to start with. As was mentioned in a previous documentation, each of these have their own charge rates. So if you pick any of the large ones, it'll probably become very expensive. And when we get into the actual notebook, you'll see when we start training the model, it actually spins up a different instance. So the notebook and the training is in two different instances. So we just picked the tiny one here just to be cheap. The other thing that we want to go down in here is do the Identity and Access Management role, the IAM role. I've actually got one created previously, so I don't need to start a new one. I've actually got two here. I've done this several times. However, just to show you how to create one, I'm going to say create a new role. Once we get into create a new role, the only thing that we have to change is to come down here and click this none. That's because we need this role to have access to any of the S3 buckets with SageMaker in the name. That's kind of like the default that's set in here, and that's all we really need for these notebooks. So we can just say none, come in, create a role, and we can see it just made a new role for us. The other thing we want to change is a new option, which is fantastic, is you can actually say the repo. And so as soon as you spin up the instance, it'll automatically clone the repo. So you want to go down here and say clone a public Git repository to this notebook instance only. So we need to get the repo URL. So we go back, of course, to the repo that we have. You want to go in and click this little green button here, and we'll pick this copy to clipboard button. So I just click that, and then when we come back, we can go in here and Control V or right click, whichever you choose, copy in there, and then create notebook instance. So it's literally as simple as that. It's now in the background spinning up all the required resources to host that particular notebook. You don't have to kind of worry about that. It is going to be this type of instance in the background. It's going to take several times for the status to go from pending to in service. So I'm just going to pause the notebook while that happens. And again, it's going to take several minutes, so maybe grab a coffee while it waits. Okay, so the status now has turned to in service, as we can see here. So it's ready to open. And to open it is as simple as coming over and clicking the Open Jupyter page. So the beautiful thing is it's actually opening it. As we come in now, it's already cloned all the repos, so all the files we need is already sitting here. Right now, because this is early days in the repo, we don't actually show up any of the notebooks, but in the following videos, when we actually do the data processing and such and training, you'll see that there'll be different notebooks in here which we could click and open up and go into. However, while we're here, I just want to kind of show you this SageMaker examples, which I think is a great bit of content. And there's a whole bunch of different types of projects that you might have. And so, for instance, we're in reinforcement learning. So we'll just go in here. And we can see there's a whole suite of different reinforcement learning notebooks that already have been created. You can use it, which will go and create a proper instance, or you can just say preview. The preview is kind of nice because it'll just open up a very simplified version here, and we can go through and look at it and kind of see all the things that they've done. We're not going to be able to run it when in the preview, but we can kind of at least get an idea of all the different things that you can do with the SageMaker. So again, very, very nice resource that they have built in here. So for now, that's all we're going to do. In the next video, we'll come in and actually launch a notebook and go through the different processing. But again, this initial set of steps, you'll have to do this every time. Or I should say, you won't have to do that every time. Now when you come in, you can simply come in and there will be, if we come at the beginning, the very beginning of the console, you can see recently visited services now should say Amazon SageMaker for you. You can jump in here. And we just go over to notebook instances, or you might actually have one already listed here. So I'll say notebook instances, and there's the one we just created. The other thing we'll do is we will stop this particular instance right now, since we're not going to be using it. So it's always good to shut down any sort of resources that you have. It's good practice, and make sure that you're not getting any sort of charges charged against you, because it is pay as you go. So the longer things are up and running, the longer you have charged. So it'll stop this now. Once it's stopped, if you're finished and you don't plan on ever opening this up again, you could just kind of clear out your account and just say delete to delete that particular asset. However, if you're going to be opening it up, maybe going back, do some things, you can just leave it stopped and come in and clean it out when you wish. The other last thing I guess I wanted to mention before we go is, again, I always kind of recommend, this is just a general something I like doing. Whenever I come in, I kind of go into my console, go into EC2, and have a look, make sure you don't have any running instances or anything here that you don't know about, right? So if you do see some running instances and you're not really sure what it is, definitely kind of go in and it would be listed here and you can shut them down. So if you would select it, actions, instance state, and you can stop it or terminate it. So again, if you have something in there that's running, it might be charging you, and that's I find that's the biggest charge you get from AWS is when you have something running that you weren't aware of. So this is a kind of a nice way to make sure that nothing is being charged that you didn't think. So again, next time you come in, you can simply come in, AWS SageMaker, come down to notebook instances, and your notebook should be here. See, now it's stopped. So we could just select it, actions, and start it back up again. And then you'll have to wait those few minutes while it starts back up, and you can jump in and pick up whichever notebook that you wanted. So that's it. It's as simple as that. Within 7 minutes or so, you have yourself a very nice environment to build your machine learning models, and we can certainly go through and train our deep reinforcement learning for portfolio optimization. So thanks, and see you again in the next video.